eCubed is the Department of Basic Education's program which seeks to bring high-quality project-based learning (PBL) to scale. This initiative promotes instruction that gets students creating, investigating, performing, and experimenting rather than taking notes and tests. In our social newscast, we talk to Executive Director James Donald about this new thinking, how we develop entrepreneurial mindsets, and we ask if the current education system is broken. You're listening to our social newscast brought to you by socialtv.co.za and hosted by me, Sam Marshall. James, thank you very much for your time. What is eCubed?
eCubed is a Department of Basic Education program to make sure that every young person is inspired to leave school, ready to go into university, further education, entrepreneurship, or employment. So at the moment, most young people are getting to matric, but by the time they get there, they don't know exactly what their next step is going to be. And it's certainly not every one of them. There's something like 700,000 matrics writing exams this year, but well over 1 million of that cohort of young people start at grade 1. So what eCubed is a program to get all young people through the school system, but to make sure that by the time they leave, they're really ready to take that first step in one of those 3 E's: entrepreneurship, employability, or education.
It's quite interesting that you talk about the 3 E's because we are in a landscape within the South African context where those 3, depending on where you are, who you are sitting around the table with, who you're engaging with, those 3 things are exclusive. And they're not always included in the conversation. How do we change the mindset to say that education, in actual fact, is a key component to entrepreneurship and employability?
Yeah, I think we need to understand for ourselves. If you think back, make it very personal for yourself. Think back to what are you doing today? Like, what is it that you find meaning and employment and engagement out of in your own work? And where did those skills and capacities come from? And you'll realize a lot of it is your internal sense of belief and confidence in yourself. So someone gave you a chance to take an opportunity to pursue the career that you're currently in today. And those kinds of things weren't necessarily planned up front in advance. They were opportunities that you took when they came your way. And slowly over time, you built up the confidence, the mindsets, the networks to take advantage of those things and pursue the careers and find meaning in your life. So that's what education should be about. It should be about helping young people think about, who do I want to be when I grow up? It sounds so natural and simple, but make that real for them. Make it practical. Don't make it something they have to deal with in 10 years' time, but how do they deal with it today? So if you're a 12-year-old today, what are you curious about? What are you excited about? If you want to become a football star, what does that mean? And how can you start doing something practical today to help you exploring, what you could be good at when you eventually leave school? So I think it's about making the whole learning experience far more focused on developing, children themselves and again, it's down to basics. What kind of school experience did we want when we were younger? Like what was the kind of stuff that got us excited and engaged in the classroom? And what do we want for our children? And so really the eCubed program is about trying to find a way to create more and more spaces like that in the current school system. We know things aren't perfect, but we do have thousands of teachers supporting learners every day. How do we help them do their work? How do we support them so they don't feel overwhelmed? But how do we help them do it in ways that the science says will work, that the science says will help children learn? Because it certainly isn't standing by the chalkboard and shouting at them, and I think all of us know that.
When you talk about enabling, developing, and the one word that jumped out in your response to me is the word curiosity. First thing that pops up, if this is the ideal, what is currently wrong with the system? Why has the system been broken for so long? And why now is the Department of Basic Education, who are the custodians of education in South Africa, realizing that in actual fact there might be a problem with the practice of educational training as it stands at the moment?
No, I think we all know our history, right? And so South Africa has, in a way, the worst of both worlds, right? So the world is rapidly changing. So the way that we understood school is a relatively new idea. Only in the last 100 years or so has it been this sort of blanket acceptance that every child will have a formal education. Now that education system, the way we run it, sort of perfected in places like the UK and the US, that was designed for a very specific kind of world where you would have manual labor, or you'd be in management or some kind of leadership, or you might even go to the military, right? So it was designed with a very specific idea of what kind of work you would do. And if there was that work for you, it worked relatively well. So you would leave school and then go straight into, a blue collar job, or go straight into a process in the army to become, a leader or whatever it might be. And so that system itself, the kinds of work that people are doing is very different. So that system needs to change. Now that's happening around the world. Everyone's recognizing that. South Africa has that challenge on top of course, our apartheid challenge, where we grossly underinvested in education deliberately. Over the entire process of building that first system of education, we designed it only for very small portions of the population. So, you will know, even in a public school now, a young person who goes through quite a traditional school, but who's got support from their family, who does their homework, who gets involved in sport after school, who is supported, has a middle-class lifestyle, they're going to generally be quite successful. And that's because even in a traditional setting, where you're just, in inverted commas, learning maths and English, etc., the real power of school that we often don't talk about is that those children are getting all these messages about, first of all, you're going to be asked to do difficult things. You will be able to do them. We will support you to do them. And even if you fall and make a mistake, we'll help you get back up again and succeed. So the real success of a traditional school isn't necessarily that you learn how to write an essay or how to do math. It's what happens inside your head. It's that development of your own sense of purpose, what you want to do, your sense of self-confidence. And you also take on board this idea that the world is my oyster. I have an opportunity to go out there and make something of my life, right? That comes from, being in an environment that's caring and supportive. Even a very traditional school creates that environment. So what we're learning now is that you can have more deliberate ways to nurture those kinds of outcomes. So you can be more specific about giving a child a project and a challenge, and you can create an environment that has all these, what we call special, these elements in it. So there's play, there's social interaction, there's iteration, it's very learner-centered, there's joy, all these things. And if you think back to, even a very traditional class, say you had a math class when you were 12 or 13 years old, where the teacher was just really good. What does really good mean? It means that they create this environment where you feel like you can succeed in. So in one sense, the DBE is not doing anything radically new, but it is recognizing that the science of learning says actually creating these kinds of environments is really important for learners, and it's possible to do. What's important about project-based learning for eCubed is not project-based learning itself. It could almost be any kind of way of learning. Project-based learning is important to us because we can't change everything at the same time. We can't make sure that every classroom has all the resources and material, that every teacher has the perfect training and support. But the DBE curriculum expects teachers to assess learners in the third term through a project that currently exists. And it's quite a nice kind of component to our curriculum that learners are supposed to write exams, but actually by law, teachers are supposed to give children a chance to prove themselves in a way that's not a written exam. And it happens to be a project. So teachers are already doing that, and in some cases doing it really well. What eCubed is doing is taking the science to make sure that that experience is now more than just homework, more than just an assessment. It is this little experience of really world-class environment, science-focused learning. And we want to get really good at that so that we can help a teacher anywhere in the country with any resources bring about elements of that and over time become really, really good at it. So it's not just kids in the well-resourced, the stereotype of the Model T school, or perhaps in a rural school that just has gotten, lucky over time, a really good principal and some other resources. But actually any classroom in the country can create this special learning environment, and we can help a teacher create that. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, when they listen to you articulate quite eloquently the challenges and kind of how you want to change the current environment and what some of those realities look like, I think the first detractors are going to say, yes, but James, love it, but every school, every province is not the same. because the environments are very different. There are just so many individual pieces at play. How do you make sure that in a country that's so unequal like South Africa that you level the playing field? How is that possible?
Yeah, I think there are two angles to that, and it really is a big and exciting opportunity sort of on the horizon. So South Africa's school system is quite standardized, right? A lot of countries don't have a national curriculum. We do. So whether you're in Kuruman or whether you're in Craigwell Park, you're going to write the same matric exam, right? Now that has there's lots of problems with that already, but you are going to write the same exam. And our matric exam, as critical as people are of it, it's relatively high quality. It's standardized. It's well delivered. Most people rely on the results. So as an exam, the matric exam currently does what it's supposed to do. It assesses learners in a standardized way. And most of those assessments are pretty well, sort of benchmarked internationally. That's what the DBE's job is to go and look at international standards and set local assessments that kind of meet those standards. The problem is, for whether you're in Kuruman or Craigwell Park, is that exam comes too late. It literally comes at the end of your school career. So anything that exam tells you at now is almost too late for you to do anything about it. And also, it is going to be highly focused on the academic components, how well you do in maths or geography or whatever exam that you write. So what's happening now from around 2024, there will be what's called a general education certificate. So there will be a new standardized national exam that every learner in the country will write in grade 9. Now, what's exciting about that is the DBE really wants to make sure that that is an opportunity for assessment for learning, not just assessment for reporting. In other words, at the end of grade 9, at the end of your first 10 years in the school system, you get some real good feedback that tells you these are what your inclinations might be. These are the kinds of strengths you seem to have. These are the kinds of subjects you should potentially choose. Again, whether you're in Craigwell or Kuruman. And also, the new component is looking at the science of learning and all this conversation about 21st century skills. It'll also have components in it where learners will get some feedback around how they stand on certain things like creativity, communication, collaboration, so that they know how they can build those strengths and get stronger at them. So what that assessment is going to do is suddenly every teacher in the country, whether they're in Kuruman or in Craigwell Park, their job description is going to require them to prepare learners for that exam. So that's one side of it. And then the other side is basically going back to the individual teacher. So there are things that unite us as humans and that our experience is the same. So if you go into a class in Kuruman, your teacher is human. She probably knows your name. He knows your name. They've also been children themselves. Their ability to build a relationship with you is not necessarily any different to the ability of a teacher in Craigwell Park to build a relationship with you. Also, their own issues, those teachers' own sense of life and purpose and identity is probably no different. So if we can reach each teacher at a personal level, sort of say, we see you, you go to school every day, we know things are hard, can we help you connect to other resources to help you with your problems every day? And we know you're going to have to fill out the same assessment rubric as the teacher in the city does. Exactly the same, quite literally, because it's the same national curriculum. Can we help you do it and make it easier for you? And can we show you while doing that there are ways that you can do this that will make your classroom life easier, will make the kids more engaged, will make people more involved with you.
And are you doing it, James? Is it?
Yeah, so the DBE's process is to make sure that we work in every province.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of the program, as it, talk to me about the pilot program. So this pilot program is currently running in how many schools, and what were some of the outcomes?
Yeah, so in the primary schools, there are 108 schools that are getting direct kind of close access across the province, across the country. And then there are another almost 200 schools that are getting training by each of the provinces. And so every province has a coordinator that's assigned to this project. And then we have relationships with district coordinators, with curriculum advisors, because in the end, you need people very close to the ground to be able to support a teacher to do it. So we've had rural Limpopo, we've had programs in the Northwest, we've had programs in the cities, ranges of different places, stepping up and saying, our teachers had been trying this and it's been working for them already. And just now, those 108 schools I was talking to you about, we had people go and visit every one of them. They finished those visits about a week ago. And so in the next couple of weeks and early next year, we'll have a really good understanding of what lessons were learned, what did teachers understand, what was hard, what did they like, so we can constantly get better and better at it. So we can test and learn how to make this work better.
Any project works with collaboration, partnerships. How do we make sure a program like eCubed becomes a success? And what are the ingredients that you need to make sure it becomes a success?
I think the first one is understanding. People need a story of how can we make South Africa better and what can we do today to make things better. So I think wanting to get involved makes a big kind of step in the right direction. Then actually acting on that in a way that uses the benefits of new technology. So, joining us in our Teacher Connect network, connecting, knowing what's happening with us, sharing information with other teachers, with other parents, asking questions. I think those kinds of bringing the Friday sort of evening, Saturday bride conversation where everyone's talking about how our children have no future in this country. It's sort of turning that complaint into a commitment to do something about it. And saying, actually, there is something we can do about it. Even if it's just that me as a dad learns about how can I not squash the creativity that my child is born with, but how can I just be a bit more curious about the things that they're showing? How can I learn that skill? And then extrapolating out from that, from one by one to something that we can do at a national level.
All of this you can find on the Teacher Connect app.
Yeah, so if you join Teacher Connect, so there are already 150,000 teachers that use it. So it's an easy number to remember. It's 060-060-3333. And you WhatsApp the word hi, and then it asks you if you're a teacher or a parent or what and then you'll get information based on what your profile is. And then from that space, you'll be able to learn, you'll be able to ask questions, you'll be able to get your school involved. And it's still very early days in that process. It's only going to get more and more engaging over the next year.
That's James Donald from eCubed talking to us about the Department of Basic Education's Entrepreneurship, Employability and Education program, supporting teachers today, growing learners for tomorrow.